The low, persistent hum of the baggage carousel was a sound Elias Vance knew better than his own heartbeat. For 37 years, it had been the soundtrack to his life within the sprawling, ceaseless organism that was Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. He'd seen designer suitcases, worn-out duffels, oddly shaped parcels wrapped in duct tape, even a set of golf clubs that had somehow navigated the labyrinthine conveyor belts without a single scuff mark. But never, not once in nearly 4 decades had he seen what was now slowly, tragically, rotating into view, nestled precariously between a bright yellow carry-on and a faded blue rucksack. It was a dog, a small scruffy terrier mix, its fur a matted tangle of cream and fawn, its eyes wide and pupils dilated, with an unadulterated terror that seemed to suck the very air from Elias's lungs. The dog, no bigger than a child's backpack, tumbled gently, not with the abrupt jerk of a bag hitting a snag, but with the soft, almost graceful arc of something alive, something utterly disoriented. Its little body curled in on itself, tail tucked so tightly between its legs, it seemed to disappear entirely. A low guttural whimper escaped its throat, almost lost beneath the roar of a jet engine powering up outside on the tarmac, the disembodied voice of a distant gate agent announcing a final boarding call for Paris, and the general cacophony of thousands of lives converging and diverging in the world's busiest airport. But the whimper, thin as it was, cut through everything for Elias. A collective gasp rippled through the small crowd gathered at Carousel 3, a momentary stunned silence falling like a sudden snowdrift over the usual bustle of arrivals at ATL's South Terminal. Cell phones initially raised to capture family reunions or the first glimpse of luggage wavered, then dropped. Faces that had been animated with travel fatigue or anticipatory joy morphed into expressions of disbelief and shock. One moment, he had been snuggled in the soft, familiar scent of Sarah's worn denim jacket, the muffled thrum of the moving box a peculiar comfort. The next, a sudden, violent jolt, a flash of blinding light, and the familiar scent was gone, replaced by the sharp, metallic tang of the cold black belt beneath him. He was spinning, tumbling, his small paws scrabbling uselessly for purchase on the slick surface. His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird, each beat a frantic, desperate rhythm. Panic, cold and sharp, seized him. Where was Sarah? Where was Lily? Her laughter like sunshine. He stretched his nose, sniffing frantically, but all he registered was the sterile, unfamiliar scent of 1,000 strangers, of something burnt and metallic, and the overpowering, acrid tang of fear, his own. The bright lights above glared down, burning into his eyes, and the endless stream of feet, boots, sneakers, heels, all moving, always moving, made his head spin. He was alone, utterly terrifyingly alone. Elias Vance, a man whose uniform vest bore the embroidered badge of baggage supervisor, moved with a speed that belied his 60-odd years and the slight hitch in his gait. He strode towards the carousel, his eyes fixed on the small, trembling creature. "Hold on! Stop the belt!" His voice, normally a gruff but steady rumble, was laced with an urgency that immediately caught the attention of the nearest baggage handler, a young man named Miguel, who was still blinking in disbelief at the surreal scene. Miguel, snapping out of his daze, fumbled for the emergency stop button on the wall. With a groan of machinery and a final, lingering shudder, Carousel 3 ground to a halt. The sudden silence, heavier now, felt almost oppressive. Every eye in the vicinity was on the abandoned Terrier, frozen in place on the black rubber belt, its small body quivering uncontrollably. Among the stunned onlookers was Lena Sharma. She had been scanning the carousel for her own modest suitcase, a carefully curated collection of clothing and design essentials for the high-stakes presentation that awaited her in downtown Atlanta. Her flight from San Francisco had been smooth, the pre-landing announcements about connecting flights and ground transportation a comforting drone. But the sight of the dog, so small and utterly vulnerable amidst the impersonal machinery, struck her with a force that made her own well-practiced composure crumble. Her hand, previously clutching her boarding pass, went instinctively to her mouth. Pip's desperate eyes, full of a raw, primal fear, met hers for a fleeting second, and Lena felt a profound, almost painful tug in her chest. It was the same look she'd sometimes caught in her own reflection, late at night, in the quiet solitude of her studio apartment, a deep, unsettling loneliness. Elias, now kneeling beside the stopped carousel, spoke in a low, soothing tone, the kind he usually reserved for calming down irate passengers whose luggage had gone missing. "Hey there, little fella. It's okay. Easy now." He extended a hand, palm open, slowly, cautiously, not wanting to spook the already terrified animal. The dog, however, merely pressed itself tighter against a hard-sided suitcase, its tiny chest heaving. A faint, sickening smell of urine emanated from its immediate vicinity. The poor thing had been so scared, it had lost control. The air in the cavernous baggage claim area of ATL was a peculiar blend of smells. The faint metallic scent of jet fuel that somehow seeped in from the runways, the pervasive aroma of stale coffee and lukewarm hot dogs from the concession stands, the crisp, almost sterile tang of disinfectant used on the tiled floors, and now, undeniably, the sharp, anxious scent of an animal in distress. Overhead, the fluorescent lights hummed with an almost audible drone, casting a harsh, even glow that accentuated every dust motes dancing in the air and every line on Elias Vance's weary face. The ceiling, high and vast, seemed to stretch into an endless expanse, punctuated by the occasional echo of a rolling cart or a shouted farewell. Even with the carousel stopped, the underlying hum of the airport never truly ceased. The distant rumble of the plane train ferrying passengers between concourses, the muffled announcements from other gates, the ceaseless tread of thousands of feet on polished floors. It was a place of perpetual motion, a city within a city, and within its heart a small abandoned creature was lost. A few people shook their heads, others murmured sympathetic noises. No one stepped forward. The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken questions. Lena felt an inexplicable urge to step forward, to offer what comfort she could. But she hesitated, her logical mind reminding her of the protocols, the strangers, the sheer unpredictability of a scared animal. She watched as Elias, with infinite patience, continued to speak to the terrier, his voice a balm in the chaotic environment. He slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out a small crinkled bag, a half-eaten sandwich from his break. He tore off a tiny piece of turkey and held it out. "Hungry, little one? Come on, just a bite." The smell of the meat, though faint, cut through the fog of fear. For a fleeting second, hunger warred with terror. He blinked, his eyes darting from the meat to Elias's kindly, craggy face, then back to the dizzying array of legs and suitcases beyond the carousel. He wanted to trust, to succumb to the lure of the food, but the world was still spinning, even though the belt was still. Where was his safe place? Where was the soft hand that always scratched behind his ears, the gentle voice that murmured nonsense words of affection? How did it even get in there? How did a live animal end up on a baggage carousel, usually reserved for inanimate objects sealed and scanned? It implied an intentional act, a callous abandonment or a catastrophic accident. The implications weighed heavily on Elias. His years of experience told him this was not a simple lost item. This was a crisis. He finally managed to get a grip on the back of the terrier's scruff, gently but firmly. The dog yelped, a high piercing sound of pure distress, and tried to snap, but its jaw was weak, its energy depleted. Elias, used to dealing with far larger and more aggressive animals in various airport-related incidents, rogue birds on the tarmac, stray cats in the hangars, held firm, his grip secure, but careful not to hurt it. Slowly, meticulously, he lifted the trembling bundle of fur from the carousel, cradling it awkwardly in his arms. The dog continued to shiver violently, burying its head into his armpit, its small body feeling impossibly light. "Let's get you somewhere safe." Elias stood up, the terrier still clutched to his chest. The smell of fear and urine was stronger now, but he didn't flinch. He walked slowly, carefully, towards an open door leading to the operations area, Miguel hurrying to open it for him. Lena watched him go, a sense of helplessness washing over her. She knew she should just collect her bag, head to her meeting, get on with her life. But the image of those terrified eyes, the small quivering body, was seared into her mind. She saw her own reflection in them, a life lived cautiously, always on the edge, never fully committing, always ready to retreat. This dog was a mirror, and she found herself unwilling to look away. Elias turned, the dog still a trembling bundle in his arms. Is there anything I can do? To help? He saw the concern etched on her face, the way her hand still hovered near her chest as if to calm her own racing heart. "Right now, ma'am, he needs to calm down. And we need to figure out where he came from. Airport security will be involved, maybe animal control. It's a whole process." He spoke slowly, emphasizing the bureaucracy, perhaps hoping to deter her. He'd seen plenty of well-meaning individuals offer help, only to disappear when the reality of airport procedures, the paperwork and the waiting game set in. She walked a few steps closer, I feel terrible for him. He's so scared. Been through something rough, that's for sure. He glanced down at the dog, which had now nestled a little deeper into his uniform, its shivering beginning to subside into an exhausted tremor. You can go to gate E3, ask for Officer Miller. She'll be the one dealing with this for now. But don't expect miracles, ma'am. Airport rules are strict. With that, Elias turned and disappeared through the operations door, the heavy clang as it shut, leaving Lena standing alone, a strange mixture of resolve and uncertainty settling over her. The minutes that followed were a blur. Lena mechanically retrieved her luggage, the crisp, clean lines of her designer suitcase, a stark contrast to the rough, unknown journey the Terrier had endured. The smell of the airport, once merely a backdrop, now seemed imbued with the ghost of animal fear and anxiety. She walked through the concourse, the vibrant energy of ATL, the bustling concourse shops, the distant laughter of children, the excited chatter of diverse languages, felt muted, almost unreal. The rhythmic clack of the plane train as it pulled into the station, the automated voice announcing, "Next stop, Concourse E," usually a reassuring sign of efficient travel, now felt like a relentless reminder of the impersonal machinery that had almost claimed a life. She made her way to Concourse E, the air growing denser with the scent of international travel. Exotic perfumes, spices, the faint, sweet smell of duty-free chocolate. Signs in multiple languages pointed the way to distant destinations, to lives and stories unfolding far beyond Atlanta. She thought of the little dog, probably never having left the confines of a home, suddenly thrust into this swirling vortex of global transit. When she reached Gate E3, a security officer, a stern-faced woman with a meticulously braided ponytail, was already seated at a desk, a stack of forms in front of her. She looked up as Lena approached. "Can I help you, ma'am?" "The one from baggage claim." "Mr. Vance told me to come here. He said you were Officer Miller." Lena's voice felt small, almost apologetic. Officer Miller's expression softened slightly, a flicker of something akin to weariness crossing her features. "That's right. Officer Carla Miller. And yes, the dog. He's in the holding area for now." Still very scared, she gestured towards a door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." "This is quite a situation. We've already contacted Animal Control, but they're short-handed. And the paperwork, well, it's a lot. Emotionally, hard to say. No tag, no microchip we could detect on the initial scan, which means we can't trace an owner. Makes things complicated." Officer Miller leaned forward, her voice dropping slightly. "Legally, if an animal is found without identification and no owner comes forward within a certain time frame, it's considered abandoned. It goes to a shelter, and after a holding period it can be put up for adoption. Or worse, if it's deemed too aggressive or unhealthy." The idea of the small, terrified creature, so recently tumbling alone on a baggage carousel, now facing an uncertain future in a shelter, was unbearable. "How long is that time frame?" "After that, it's out of our hands. And the airport is not a long-term animal care facility, ma'am. We have protocols." Carla Miller's tone was professional, but Lena detected a hint of something else beneath the practiced neutrality, a quiet resignation, perhaps even a touch of sadness. Lena took a deep breath. Her meeting, her career, her carefully constructed, orderly life, they all seemed distant, irrelevant in the face of this small, furry tragedy. Can I see him? He's in a transport crate. We don't want to stress him out any more than he already is." She stood up, her uniform crisp, her movements precise. "Follow me." In the center of the room, on the floor, was a standard airline-approved pet carrier. Inside, curled into a tight ball, was Pip. He was no longer shaking, but his eyes, when he lifted his head at their approach, were still wide with fear, reflecting the harsh fluorescent light like polished obsidian. A small, almost inaudible whimper escaped him. It smelled of other terrified animals that had passed through, and the air here was thick with the scent of human indifference. He could hear distant voices, muffled and indistinct, but none were Sarah's, none were Lily's. He had tried to scratch at the bars, to push against the strange, unyielding walls, but his paws had slipped, and his strength had quickly failed him. Now he simply lay, his nose pressed into the corner, trying to block out the overwhelming stimuli, trying to find a scent of familiarity, a whisper of hope. He heard footsteps, two sets, one heavy and purposeful, the other lighter, softer. He lifted his head, peering through the small wire mesh of the crate door. A new face. Not the kind man with the turkey. This one was a woman, her face etched with a strange, mirroring sadness. Her eyes, dark and deep, held a glimmer of understanding. He whimpered again, a low, pleading sound he hadn't known he possessed. "Please, help me find them." She reached out a finger slowly, cautiously, towards the mesh. Pip flinched, pulling back slightly, but he didn't growl, didn't snap. Instead, his eyes, so full of terror a moment ago, now held a flicker of something else, a desperate, unspoken plea. Lena felt it deep in her gut. This wasn't just a dog. This was a soul lost and yearning. Baggage handlers are trained to look for anything out of place. And a live animal. That usually means it was put in there. Her voice was laced with a quiet accusation, a judgment against whoever could do such a thing. Officer Miller shrugged. Not necessarily. Some people try to sneak animals as carry-on, get caught, and then panic. Or they just don't want them anymore. We see all kinds of stories, she sighed. It's a sad reality of a place like this. Animals are often collateral damage in human lives. He had stopped whimpering, his breathing still shallow, but he seemed to be watching her, his small head cocked ever so slightly. She felt an almost overwhelming desire to reach in, to scoop him up, to hold him tight, and tell him everything would be all right. But she was powerless, bound by rules and procedures, by the sheer overwhelming complexity of a situation she barely understood. But as I said, animal control will be here within the next few hours to pick him up. Once he's with them, he's their responsibility. In case an owner doesn't show up and he needs a home. The words spilled out before she could second-guess them. A home. Her small minimalist apartment. Her demanding job. Her lonely life. Could she truly offer a home to a creature so deeply scarred? Officer Miller looked at her, a glimmer of surprise in her eyes. She usually dealt with people who wanted to get rid of problems, not take them on. You're serious? The fear was still there, the uncertainty, but beneath it a new feeling was stirring. A sense of purpose, a strange, unexpected connection. Please, just in case, fill out this form. She handed Lena a clipboard with a generic lost and found form, repurposing it for the unusual circumstances. Put your name, number, and potential adopter in the notes. No guarantees, of course. It's a long shot. She looked at Pip one last time, meeting his gaze. She offered a small, tentative smile. Pip blinked slowly, his small tail giving a single, almost imperceptible twitch within the confines of the crate. A flicker of hope or just a trick of the light? Lena couldn't be sure, but she left the room with a renewed sense of commitment. The airport, once merely a transit point, had now become the setting for an unforeseen, deeply personal mission. Her meeting could wait. Her life, it seemed, had just taken an unexpected, compelling detour. Outside the security office, the Atlanta airport continued its relentless rhythm. The rumble of aircraft taking off and landing was a constant, almost hypnotic backdrop. People rushed past, their faces a blur of anticipation, exhaustion, or indifference. Lena found an empty bench near a large window overlooking the tarmac. The afternoon sun, filtered through the tinted glass, cast long, distorted shadows across the polished floor. A massive Airbus A380 was being pushed back from its gate, its 4 engines a silent promise of distant lands. Thousands of souls, encapsulated in a metal tube, hurtling towards their destinations. And somewhere in the heart of this vast global machinery, a tiny abandoned dog was waiting, its silent plea for love echoing amidst the departing crowds. Lena felt a strange kinship with Pip. Both were, in a way, waiting for something to shift, for a connection to be made, for a life to begin anew. Meanwhile, Elias Vance, having secured Pip in the holding area, was making his rounds, his mind still replaying the sight of the terrified terrier on the carousel. He paused by a service elevator, catching a brief, staticky message on his walkie-talkie. It was Officer Miller, informing him that animal control was en route, and that a civilian had expressed interest in adoption. Elias grunted, a sound that could have meant anything from skepticism to quiet approval. He remembered the woman's face, her genuine concern. Not many people stuck around once the initial shock wore off. This one, Lena Sharma, seemed different. He pushed the button for the lower levels, the belly of the beast. The airport's underground was a labyrinth of conveyor belts, storage rooms, and maintenance tunnels, a world unseen by the millions of passengers above. It was where the true magic and grit of the airport happened. As the elevator descended, the low rumble of machinery intensified, a symphony of industrial power. Elias thought of his own dog, Maggie, a stubborn but loving beagle mix who greeted him every evening with a joyous bark and a wagging tail. Maggie was old now, her muzzle graying, her steps a little slower. She was his anchor, his steady companion since his wife passed 5 years ago. He knew what a dog meant to a person, and seeing Pip, so lost and vulnerable, stirred something deep within him, a memory of a time when everything felt equally precarious. Back at the baggage carousel, the scene had mostly returned to normal. New flights had landed, new waves of passengers arrived, eager to retrieve their belongings and move on. The memory of the dog on the carousel was already fading for most, a brief, bizarre interlude in their travel plans. But for Lena, sitting by the window, and for Elias navigating the hidden depths of the airport, the small terrier was a presence, a catalyst that had shifted their world, however subtly. Hours later, the sun began its slow descent, painting the Atlanta sky in hues of orange and purple. The airport lights, thousands of them, flickered on, transforming the bustling hub into a sparkling constellation against the darkening canvas. The flow of passengers, though constant, shifted from daytime commuters to evening travelers, heading out on red-eye flights or arriving for late-night connections. The aroma of roasted peanuts from a nearby snack bar mingled with the distant scent of brewing coffee. In the sterile holding room, Pip huddled miserably in his crate. The initial terror had given way to a profound exhaustion, a weariness that settled deep into his bones. He missed the familiar rhythm of home, the sound of Lily's quiet breathing in the next room, the reassuring weight of Sarah's hand on his fur. He had been so brave when the world went dark inside the box, listening to Sarah's whispered reassurance that it was just for a little while, my brave boy. But the little while had stretched into an eternity of noise and unfamiliarity. He tried to sleep, but every distant clang, every muffled announcement jolted him awake, reminding him of his precarious situation. Then the door opened. A new human entered, a woman with a kind face dressed in a uniform that said Animal Control. Her movements were slow, deliberate. She spoke in soft tones, almost like Sarah, and offered a small meaty treat. Pip, though wary, was too hungry and depleted to refuse. He snatched it, gulped it down, then retreated to the back of his crate. He watched as she gently placed a small embroidered blanket inside, its scent unfamiliar, but surprisingly soft. It wasn't Sarah's jacket, but it was something. The woman, whose name was Officer Ramirez, spent a few minutes speaking with Officer Miller. Lena, still waiting patiently on her bench outside, watched the exchange, her heart thumping. This was it. The moment Pip would leave the airport, disappearing into the vast system of animal welfare. Officer Ramirez approached Lena, a polite smile on her face. "You're Ms. Sharma, correct? Officer Miller told me about your interest in the terrier. No visible injuries. He's underweight, but nothing critical. We'll get him to our facility downtown, get him checked by a vet and see if we can find any identification. His microchip scan came back negative here, but sometimes our more advanced equipment can pick up faint signals." Officer Ramirez paused, her gaze thoughtful. "I appreciate your offer, Ms. Sharma. It's always good to know there are people like you out there. We'll keep your information on file. If no owner comes forward after the mandatory holding period, which is 72 hours, as Officer Miller explained, and he's deemed healthy and suitable for adoption, you'll be contacted. But please understand we have a waiting list, and many factors go into placement. 72 hours. A lifetime for a scared animal. I understand. Thank you, Officer Ramirez." Pip, sensing the change, let out another desperate whimper. His small dark eyes found Lena's through the mesh. It was a silent, agonizing farewell, a plea that tore at Lena's heart. She wanted to shout, to demand to take him now, to scoop him up and whisk him away from this terrifying place. But she couldn't. She was just a civilian, bound by the protocols of a system she barely understood. As Officer Ramirez walked away, her footsteps echoing down the long concourse, Pip's crate growing smaller and smaller until it disappeared around a distant corner, Lena felt an emptiness settle over her. She had come to Atlanta for a career-defining meeting, but she was leaving the airport with a profound sense of loss and an unexpected, overwhelming resolve. She wasn't just waiting to hear back. She was going to fight for this dog. But the airport had a way of drawing you back in. Just as Lena was about to finally head towards ground transport, her phone buzzed. It was a text message from an unknown number. Pip. Baggage handler Elias Vance. Urgent info. Meet me by the escalators near Concourse T. Now, who was this? And how did they know about Pip? And how did they get her number? A new wave of unease washed over her. It could be a scam, a trick. But the urgency of the message, The specific reference to Elias Vance and Pip spurred her curiosity, a sudden jolt of adrenaline cutting through her weariness. Concourse T was the domestic terminal, a familiar part of the airport. She decided to risk it. Her meeting, her entire life plan felt secondary now. This small lost dog had become her unexpected priority. She found the escalators for Concourse T, a bustling nexus of travelers heading to various gates or to the plane train for their connections. A man stood there, not Elias Vance, but someone equally weathered. He was tall, with a lean build, and eyes that seemed to hold a lifetime of secrets. He wore a dark, nondescript jacket and carried a small, worn leather bag slung over his shoulder. He didn't look like airport staff. He looked more dangerous. He met her gaze, a flicker of recognition in his eyes, as if he had been expecting her. "Sharma?" he asked, his voice low, gravelly, almost a whisper beneath the airport's general din. Lena hesitated. "Yes. Who are you? And how do you know about Pip?" "Ben Carter." "I was watching. I heard Elias talking. I have information about that dog. Information Elias doesn't have, and frankly, animal control doesn't want." He glanced around, his eyes sweeping the bustling concourse, a subtle paranoia in his movements. "Not here. Too many eyes. Too many ears." He gestured towards a quieter corner, a small, dimly lit seating area tucked away near a less-used gate. Lena's heart pounded. This felt less like a rescue mission and more like a spy thriller. But her curiosity and the unwavering image of Pip's terrified eyes pushed her forward. She followed him. "Not in the way you think. He was separated, and he's in a lot of trouble." "Who are you?" It was a picture of a young woman, perhaps in her late 20s, her face thin and drawn but with kind eyes. Beside her, a little girl, no older than 5 or 6, was clutching a small, scruffy terrier. "Pip." Lena's breath caught in her throat. "And that's Pip. Lily's emotional support animal." Sarah was supposed to fly out of here this morning, headed to Seattle for a new job. A fresh start. She's been through hell trying to keep a roof over their heads, dealing with complications. He paused, weighing his words carefully. She had a pet carrier, approved. But at the gate there was a problem. A last-minute complication with the flight manifest, something about weight restrictions, or an overbooked pet cargo. Or so they told her. The truth is, someone higher up, an airline executive, pulled some strings for his own pet. Bumped Sarah's. She pleaded, she begged. They wouldn't budge. Said she couldn't board with him. Said she had to check him as excess baggage or leave him. This was a nightmare scenario. But she couldn't have just put him on the carousel. That's insane. They assured her he would be held in a secure area and put on the next available flight to Seattle. They even gave her a receipt. But something went wrong. Terribly wrong. "Sharma, I'm not supposed to be here, not talking to you, but I heard the chatter, saw the reports. There was a mix-up. A rookie baggage handler, working his first day, accidentally routed the pet carrier into the general luggage stream. He thought it was an unusual piece of baggage. The gate agent who took Pip was distracted by another emergency. And the carrier, it wasn't secured properly. The latch must have come undone during the frantic rush of the baggage sorting process. Pip, he got out," Ben grimaced. "He wasn't abandoned. He escaped. He fell onto that carousel because he was trying to find a way out of the chaos. A clerical error, a rookie mistake, a heartless executive, all combining to create such distress for a family and a helpless animal. So, Sarah doesn't know where he is. She's frantic. She called the airline, they gave her the runaround. She doesn't know he was found. Doesn't know he ended up on the carousel. They're probably still looking for him in the cargo hold, or trying to trace the original carrier. They're trying to cover it up, Ms. Sharma." A massive liability issue. An emotional support animal, misrouted and lost due to airline negligence. That's a PR disaster. Ben paused, his gaze fixed on Lena. "That's why I'm here. I couldn't stand by. I knew Elias Vance would do the right thing and get him into animal control. But once he's there, it's a whole different bureaucracy. And Sarah, she's got nothing. No money, no connections, just a new job she desperately needs to keep for her daughter, before he gets lost in the shelter system. Before they can claim he was abandoned, which is what they'll do to mitigate their damages." Ben leaned closer, his voice dropping to an even lower whisper. "I have a contact in animal control. A good person. She can help us, but it's going to be tricky. We need proof. Proof of the mix-up. Proof that Sarah tried to follow protocols. Proof that Pip isn't just a stray. circumvent the 72-hour waiting period. But Sarah's in Seattle, and she's unreachable right now, probably on her way to her new empty apartment. This is wrong. This is absolutely fundamentally wrong. A fierce sense of injustice burned within her. The airport, usually a symbol of freedom and connection, had become a cold, unfeeling machine crushing a vulnerable family. She would not stand for it. Ben reached into his jacket again, pulling out a small folded piece of paper. Here's my contact's number at Animal Control. Her name is Maria Rodriguez. Tell her Ben sent you. She'll know what to do, but you'll have to convince her it's a legitimate case. She's wary of people trying to scam the system. He looked at Lena, a flicker of admiration in his weary eyes. You're good people, Miss. Sharma. Not many would care this much. The airport, no longer just a place of transit, had become a battleground. And for Pip, a small, terrified terrier, the fight for his future had just begun. The endless hum of the airport, the distant roar of departing planes, now seemed to Lena like the muffled drums of war, a prelude to the unfolding drama that would test her resolve, her empathy, and her belief in the inherent good of people in a vast, indifferent world. She managed to track down Sarah Jenkins through a network of online support groups that Ben had mentioned earlier, leaving a frantic message on a community board. It was a long shot, but Lena felt a surge of desperate hope. The hours crawled by, punctuated by the rhythmic announcements over the airport's PA system and the relentless flow of passengers. She drank lukewarm coffee, her mind racing, replaying Ben's story. The image of Pip's terrified eyes burned into her memory. The response came unexpectedly nearly 2 hours later. A call from an unknown Seattle number. Lena's heart leaped. Hello? I saw your message. Are you serious? You found Pip? The last words were a choked sob. He's safe. He was found at the baggage carousel here at Atlanta, but he's with Animal Control now. And we know what happened. You didn't abandon him. He got out of his carrier. Lena spoke quickly, trying to convey all the information, all the reassurance in one breath. A stunned silence on the other end, then a burst of raw, uncontrolled emotion. Oh my God. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you. I was so scared. They told me he was probably lost in transit, that I wouldn't see him again. Lily is inconsolable, Sarah's voice cracked. But how? How did you know? The one the gate agent gave you. It's crucial. It's our best chance to get him released quickly. It's in my wallet. But I'm in Seattle. I just got here. I can't fly back right now. I spent my last savings on this move, and I have to start my new job tomorrow. Sarah's voice was laced with desperation. I can send it to you. A picture? Is that enough? A picture might work, but a physical receipt would be irrefutable. Still, time was of the essence. A picture is a start. Can you email it to me? Right now? Of course. Sarah sounded a little more hopeful, a spark of resolve returning. I'll send it immediately. Oh, Lena, thank you. You don't know what this means. Pip he's everything to Lily. He's been her rock since everything. The everything was left unsaid, but Lena imagined the hardship, the unspoken struggles that had led Sarah to this desperate cross-country move. We'll do everything we can, Sarah. Just send that receipt. It was an email, a slightly blurry photo of a crumpled receipt, clearly from Atlantic Airways, with a date and time stamp and a handwritten note. Pet transport, 1 small dog, kennel, ATL 472, next available flight. The airline's logo was clear. Proof. Lena immediately called Maria Rodriguez, the animal control contact Ben had given her. The woman on the other end was professional, cautious but surprisingly receptive when Lena mentioned Ben's name. Lena relayed the full story, the receipt, the details of the airline's negligence. Sharma, Maria said, her voice firm, but if what you say is true and this receipt is legitimate, it changes everything. We treat abandoned animals one way, but a misrouted lost pet due to airline error? That's different. It's a civil matter, and we can't hold the animal hostage. We need to verify the receipt with Atlantic Airways, of course. But if it checks out and the owner is indeed Sarah Jenkins, we can facilitate an immediate release. Provided the dog is healthy and not a danger. He's terrified, but he's a gentle dog, Lena pleaded, her voice cracking slightly. Please, Maria, can you go to the shelter now? Can you check on him? Can you start the process? Sharma. But I'll go. Ben's word means a lot. Give me an hour. I'll call you back with an update. She looked out the window again. The tarmac was a shimmering tapestry of lights. Aircraft moved like silent giants, their wings catching the glow of the runway lights. The sheer scale of Hartsfield-Jackson was overwhelming, a testament to human ingenuity and ambition. But tonight for Lena, it was also a place where human kindness, compassion, and the tireless work of a few good people were fighting against the cold indifference of bureaucracy and corporate negligence. She paced for what felt like an eternity, her nerves frayed, every shadow seeming to hold a new threat, every distant announcement a harbinger of bad news. The airport was slowly emptying, the late-night travelers fewer and farther between. The duty-free shops were dimming their lights, the fast-food kiosks cleaning up for the night. The energy of the place was shifting, from a frenetic daytime rush to a more somber, contemplative pace. The new human Maria was gentle. Her touch was reassuring, her voice a low murmur that didn't startle him. He had eaten. His stomach, which had been a gnawing emptiness, now felt a little full. He still missed Sarah, missed Lily, but the overwhelming panic had subsided into a dull ache. He was safe for now. He could feel it. The scent of the other animals in the shelter, though strange, was a comfort in its own way. A shared vulnerability. He drifted, his small body finally succumbing to the exhaustion of a day that had felt like a lifetime. He dreamed of familiar scents, of soft grass beneath his paws, of happy barks and the gentle laughter of his little girl. Suddenly her phone buzzed again. Maria. Lena snatched it up, her hand trembling. Hello? Maria. What's happening? Sharma, it's Maria. I'm at the shelter. I've verified the receipt. It's legitimate. And the airline, Atlantic Airways, they're squirming. My supervisor made a few calls. It seems your friend Ben was right. They're trying to contain the damage. Maria's voice had a note of triumph. The good news is Pip is clear for immediate release. No 72-hour hold period. He's healthy, just a little dehydrated and underweight. We've given him some food and water. He's very sweet, if a bit timid. Looks like he's had a rough go. She squeezed her eyes shut, a tear tracing a path down her cheek. Oh, thank God. Thank you, Maria. Thank you so much. Sharma, there's a catch. Or rather a complication. Maria's tone grew more serious. Sarah Jenkins, the owner, is in Seattle. She can't pick him up. And per our protocol, we can't release an animal to a third party without explicit, notarized permission from the owner, or without a court order. Given the time difference and the legalities, that's not going to happen tonight. And we can't keep him here indefinitely, not without proper space. A new hurdle. Always a new hurdle. So what does that mean? Someone approved. Someone we trust. Someone who can hold him until Sarah can arrange to pick him up or send proper documentation. Our shelter is full, and placing him in a general foster care system takes time. And quite frankly, after what he's been through, a direct, calm environment would be best. I'll foster him. I have a clean apartment. I'll buy everything he needs. I'll make sure he's safe and cared for. The words tumbled out fast and certain. Her apartment, usually an ordered, quiet space, suddenly felt ready for the chaotic, comforting presence of a small, frightened dog. Maria paused. Ms. Sharma, are you sure? This is a serious commitment. He's been through trauma. He'll need patience. And you're not a registered foster carer with us. I saw him at the carousel. I saw his eyes. I won't let him down. Sharma, given the exceptional circumstances and Ben's vouching for you, I'll make an exception. Come to the shelter now. I'll have the temporary foster agreement ready. We'll need a copy of your ID, and we'll need to schedule a follow-up visit to ensure the home environment is suitable. But for tonight, Pip will be safe and out of the system. The thought of Pip, safe, warm, and no longer alone, propelled her forward. The airport, a behemoth of transit and trade, had been a crucible for a small dog. But it had also, unexpectedly, forged a new path for Lena, a path she hadn't known she was looking for. When she arrived at the animal control shelter, a low-slung, unassuming building on the outskirts of Atlanta, Maria was waiting. Pip, now out of his crate and tentatively exploring a small enclosed playpen, looked up as Lena approached. He was still small, still a little scruffy, but there was a flicker of something new in his eyes. Curiosity, perhaps even a nascent trust. His tail gave a single tentative wag. Lena knelt, her heart swelling. Hey, Pip, she whispered, extending a hand slowly. This time he didn't flinch. Instead, he took a tentative step forward, sniffed her fingers, then, to her utter amazement, nudged his head into her palm. The warmth of his fur, the soft pressure of his small body was an electric shock, a connection unlike any she had ever felt. Maria smiled. He seems to like you, Ms.
Sharma.
That's a good sign. He's a survivor, this one. She loaded Pip, now safely in a loaner carrier, into the cab, feeling a profound sense of responsibility and a strange, exhilarating joy. The ride back to her apartment was quiet. Pip, nestled in his carrier, occasionally stirred, letting out a soft sigh. Lena glanced back at him, her heart full. The city lights of Atlanta blurred past, a kaleidoscope of urban energy. Her career-defining meeting, once the pinnacle of her existence, now seemed like a distant echo. Her life, once so meticulously planned and controlled, had just veered off course onto a new uncharted path, guided by the desperate plea of a small, abandoned terrier at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. She didn't know what the future held, how long Pip would stay, or how she would reconcile this new, unexpected chapter with her existing life. But as she pulled up to her quiet apartment building, she knew one thing for certain. She wouldn't trade this moment, this quiet, hopeful promise, for anything in the world. The journey for Pip had not ended on the baggage carousel. It had just begun, and Lena, an unlikely companion, was now irrevocably part of it.